I went into cardiac arrest at work during a 3 p.m. stand-up meeting. My parents never showed up at the hospital. 3 days later, still hooked to a ventilator, I saw the message my sister sent. The floor tilted first. That's what I remember. Not pain, not panic, just the sudden wrongness of gravity. One moment I was standing in the conference room, laptop open, talking through sprint deliverables with my team. The next, the fluorescent lights were spinning, and Jake's voice cut through the air like a siren. Someone call 911. He's not breathing. I didn't hear the rest. The ceiling tiles blurred into white noise, and everything went dark. When I woke up, the world was too bright and too quiet at the same time. The ICU has a specific kind of silence, the kind that hums with machines keeping you alive while your body remembers how to do it on its own. I couldn't move much. Tubes everywhere. A ventilator breathing for me. My chest ached in a way that felt both distant and immediate, like my body was a room I was locked outside of. A nurse with kind eyes leaned over me, checking monitors, adjusting something I couldn't see. She told me I was lucky, that my coworker had started CPR within seconds, that the paramedics had shocked my heart back into rhythm twice on the way to the hospital. She also told me they'd called my emergency contacts, multiple times. I didn't ask if anyone had come. I already knew. There's a specific kind of quiet that fills a hospital room when no one shows up for you. It's not peaceful, it's not restful. It's the kind of silence that makes you count the hours, wondering if maybe they just haven't gotten the message yet. Maybe they're on their way. Maybe something happened and they couldn't make it. You tell yourself stories to fill the absence, because the truth is too heavy to hold while you're hooked to machines that are doing the holding for you. Hour 12 passed, then 24. I watched sunlight crawl across the wall and disappear again. Nurses came and went. Doctors checked charts. A social worker asked if there was anyone else they should call. I said no. What I meant was, there's no one else, because the people who were supposed to be here aren't coming. On the third day, a different nurse brought me my phone. Fully charged, screen wiped clean, like they'd been taking care of it better than my own family had been taking care of me. She set it on the tray beside me, with a small smile that told me she knew. Maybe she'd seen this before. Maybe she recognized the look on my face when I asked if anyone had visited. The look that said I already knew the answer, but needed to hear it out loud to make it real. I shouldn't have opened the phone. Some part of me knew that. But when you're lying in a hospital bed with a ventilator doing the breathing you used to take for granted, you need something to hold on to. Even if it's just the hope that someone, somewhere, was thinking about you. 63 notifications. Emails, mostly. Few texts from coworkers asking if I was okay. A message from my boss saying to take all the time I needed. And then, buried in the list like a landmine waiting to go off, a text from my sister Vanessa. The preview was enough. Mum says you're being dramatic again. I opened it. The full message loaded slowly, each word appearing like a slap. Mum says you're being dramatic again. We're at the cabin. Don't ruin this for us too. Attached was a photo. My mother holding a glass of wine, smiling at the camera. My father with his arm around her, sunglasses on, relaxed. Vanessa throwing a peace sign. My younger brother Tyler grinning beside them, beer in hand. The lake shimmered behind them, golden hour light making everything look warm and perfect. The kind of photo you post when you want people to think your life is better than it is. They weren't worried. They weren't rushing to the hospital. They were on vacation. their annual cabin trip. The one they took every November without fail. The one I'd funded for the last 3 years because Dad's income had dried up and Mom said it was the only thing keeping the family together. I stared at that photo until my vision blurred. Not from tears, from something colder. The heart monitor beside me started beeping faster, a sharp, escalating rhythm that matched the sudden tightness in my chest. The nurse came in, checking the machine, asking if I was in pain. I told her I was fine. I wasn't fine. My heart was doing something it hadn't done in 3 days. It was waking up. Not in the way doctors want, in the way that happens when your body realizes what your mind has been too afraid to admit. They didn't come because they didn't care. They didn't care because they'd never seen me as a person. Just a resource, a safety net, a problem they could ignore as long as I kept solving theirs. I read the message again. Dramatic again. Like this was part of a pattern. Like collapsing at work and nearly dying was just another inconvenience I'd manufactured to get attention. Don't ruin this for us too. As if my cardiac arrest was somehow about them. As if my survival was an interruption to their vacation. The nurse stepped back, satisfied that I wasn't dying again, and left me alone with my phone, and the truth I could no longer avoid. I didn't text back. I didn't call. I just lay there, staring at the screen, at their smiling faces, at the life they were living while I fought to keep breathing. That message didn't just break my heart. It clarified everything I'd been too afraid to see. I wasn't always the person lying alone in a hospital bed. I used to be the dependable one, the boring one, the one everyone called when things fell apart, because they knew I'd show up with a solution and a checkbook. My family had a name for me that they thought was affectionate. They called me their safety net. What they meant was ATM. It started in 2017, when my father's construction business collapsed. He'd been in the industry for 30 years, building homes across the Pacific Northwest. But the market shifted and his contracts dried up faster than he could pivot. I was 26, 3 years into my career as a project manager at a growing tech startup in Seattle, pulling in a decent salary for someone my age. Not wealthy, but stable, comfortable. My dad called me on a Thursday night, voice tight with something I'd never heard from him before. Desperation. He needed $12,000 to keep the business afloat just long enough to land one more contract. Just temporary, he said, just until things turn around. I'll pay you back by Christmas. I transferred the money the next morning. Christmas came and went. The money never came back. But something else did. A pattern. My mother, Patricia, had a way of framing things that made refusal feel like betrayal. Family helps family, Marcus. You're so good with money. You don't have kids. You don't have a mortgage. You have the space to be generous. She said it like generosity was something that happened in the gaps of your life, in the margins of your budget. As if my own survival was optional, as long as theirs was secured. I didn't know how to argue with that logic without sounding selfish, so I didn't argue at all. I just kept saying yes. Vanessa, my older sister, built an entire brand around family values. Her Instagram bio read, "Yam family first lifestyle blogger," and she posted pictures of us at holidays with captions about unconditional love and the importance of staying connected. What she didn't post were the DMs she sent me every month asking for rent money. Her influencer career was always 6 months away from taking off, always one brand deal away from stability, and in the meantime, could I cover her portion of the utilities? Just this once. Just until the sponsorship comes through. I covered it 12 times in a row before I stopped counting. Tyler, my younger brother, was 28, but lived like he was still 22. He called himself an entrepreneur, which meant he moved from one failed venture to the next with the confidence of someone who'd never had to face real consequences. Crypto schemes that collapsed, drop-shipping stores that never shipped, NFT projects that vaporized. Every time, he came to me with a pitch and a promise. "This one's different, Marcus. I just need $5,000 to get started. I'll cut you in." I never got cut in. I just got cut. The pattern was so consistent it became invisible. Request, guilt trip, transfer, silence, repeat. I'd get a text or a call outlining the emergency. Then came the emotional appeal, reminding me of everything they'd done for me, everything family meant, how much they believed in me. I'd transfer the money because saying no felt like abandoning them. Then silence. Weeks, sometimes months, until the next crisis arrived and the cycle started again. I tracked it once, late at night when I couldn't sleep, pulling up old bank statements and Venmo history. $87,000 over 6 years. I made $95,000 a year. I'd been giving them nearly everything. I lived in a studio apartment with furniture from college. I drove a 9-year-old Honda with a check engine light I couldn't afford to investigate. I hadn't taken a vacation in 4 years because every time I tried to save, someone needed something, and my savings became their solution. Meanwhile, my mother drove a new SUV that I'd co-signed for. Vanessa's apartment looked like an influencer showroom, ring lights and aesthetic backdrops funded by my transfers. Tyler wore designer sneakers that cost more than my monthly groceries. I was working 70-hour weeks to keep us all afloat, and I was the only one drowning. The exhaustion wasn't just financial, it was physical. I started getting chest pains 3 months before the cardiac arrest. Sharp, sudden tightness that made me stop mid-sentence during meetings. I told myself it was stress. I told myself everyone felt like this when they worked hard. I told myself I just needed to push through until things stabilized, until my family got back on their feet, until I could finally breathe without someone needing the air from my lungs. I never asked myself why I was the one who had to hold everything together, why my stability was the foundation everyone else built their lives on, why saying no felt more dangerous than saying yes, even when yes was killing me. I'd been raised to believe that love meant sacrifice, that family meant obligation, that being dependable was the highest virtue. No one told me that dependability could become a cage, that sacrifice could become exploitation, that love shouldn't cost you everything while giving you nothing in return. The truth is, I knew something was wrong long before my heart stopped. I just didn't know how to stop giving without feeling like I was the one breaking everything. So I kept transferring money I didn't have, kept working hours I couldn't sustain, kept ignoring the tightness in my chest, because acknowledging it meant acknowledging that the people I loved were the ones killing me. And I wasn't ready to see that yet. Not until I was lying in a hospital bed, staring at a photo of them smiling without me, realizing they'd never needed me to survive. They'd just needed me to pay for their lives while I barely lived mine. 6 hours after I woke up, Kenji walked through the door. I hadn't called him. The hospital had, pulling his name from my phone after my parents never answered. He showed up with a duffel bag full of things I didn't know I needed. Clean clothes, toiletries, my laptop charger. He didn't say much, just pulled a chair next to the bed and sat down like he planned to stay. And he did, for hours. He didn't ask what happened with my family. He didn't need to. The empty room told the story. By hour 12, My co-workers had sent flowers. A massive arrangement that the nurses had to move twice because it blocked the monitor. There was a card signed by everyone on my team, messages crammed into every available space. "We're thinking of you. Take all the time you need. You're irreplaceable." Someone had started a meal delivery fund for when I got home. They'd raised $400 in less than a day. People I saw in meetings and Slack channels were organizing my survival, while my own family couldn't be bothered to show up. Hour 18 brought my boss, Rebecca. She wasn't supposed to be there. It was a Sunday. She came anyway, still in her running gear, hair tied back, looking more concerned than I'd ever seen her. She told me my job was secure, that I had extended medical leave approved, that the only thing I needed to focus on was getting better. She stayed for 20 minutes, asking careful questions about my recovery, avoiding the obvious absence in the room. When she left, she squeezed my hand and said something I'd never forget. "You have people who care about you, Marcus. Don't forget that." Hour 24 brought the social worker. She was kind, efficient, clipboard in hand, asking about my support system. "Do you have family nearby?" I lied. I told her they were on their way, that they'd just gotten the news late, that everything was fine. She nodded, wrote something down, and moved on. I don't know why I lied. Maybe because admitting the truth out loud would make it real in a way I wasn't ready for. Maybe because I was still holding on to the hope that they'd surprise me. That any minute now, my mother would rush through the door with tears in her eyes and apologies on her lips. She never came. Hours 36 through 72 were just silence. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that grows heavier the longer it lasts, the kind that fills a room until you can't think about anything else. Nurses rotated shifts. Kenji came back twice. My co-workers texted. But my family? Nothing. Not a call. Not a message. Not even a reaction to the hospital's voicemails. Just silence that felt louder than any conversation we'd ever had. On the third day, Nurse Sarah brought me my phone with an expression I couldn't quite read. Sympathy, maybe. Or recognition. Like she'd seen this before. I didn't want to open it. Some instinct told me that whatever was waiting on that screen would hurt more than the defibrillator pads that had restarted my heart. I opened it, anyway. The Instagram stories loaded one by one, building a timeline of betrayal in real time. Vanessa's car selfie first. Sunglasses on, wind through the window. Caption reading road trip with my faves with a heart emoji. Posted 11 hours after my cardiac arrest. Then my mother's sunset photo. Golden light over the lake, wine glass in frame. Caption saying, "Needed this family time." Posted during my surgery. Tyler's beer came next. Brother's weekend equals best weekend. Posted while I was still on a ventilator. And then Vanessa again. A campfire photo, flames glowing, her face peaceful and content. Disconnecting from toxic energy with a sparkle emoji. Toxic energy. She was talking about me. While I was fighting to stay alive, she was posting about disconnecting from my toxicity. My hands started shaking. The heart monitor picked up speed, beeping faster, and Nurse Sarah was back, checking my vitals, asking if I was okay. I wasn't okay. I was staring at proof that my family had planned this, that they'd known about my cardiac arrest and chosen the cabin anyway, chosen each other, chosen vacation over their son and brother lying in intensive care. Then I saw the text message, the one I'd only glimpsed in the preview. "Mum says you're being dramatic again. We're at the cabin. Don't ruin this for us too." Below it, a photo. All four of them with arms around each other, grinning like they didn't have a care in the world. My absence wasn't even mentioned. I wasn't missing from the photo. I'd been erased from the family entirely, and they looked happier for it. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just sat there, phone in hand, watching my heart rate spike on the monitor, while something inside me finally, irrevocably broke. Or maybe it didn't break. Maybe it just woke up. They discharged me on day 5 with a folder full of instructions I was supposed to follow. Stress management, lifestyle changes, follow-up appointments, medications. The cardiologist spoke slowly, making sure I understood that my life had to look different now, that I couldn't go back to the person I'd been before. I nodded at everything, signed the papers, and walked out into a world that felt unfamiliar, even though nothing had changed except me. My apartment was exactly as I'd left it, empty, quiet, no welcome home flowers, no casserole from a concerned neighbor, just the hum of the refrigerator and the echo of my footsteps on hardwood floors. I sat on the couch and stared at the wall for an hour, trying to figure out what I was supposed to feel. Relief that I'd survived. Anger that no one cared. I felt nothing. Just a strange, hollow absence, where emotions were supposed to be. I turned off my phone notifications that night, not out of spite, just exhaustion. I needed silence that was chosen, not forced. I needed to recover without the weight of expectation pressing on my chest harder than the cardiac event had. For 1 week, I focused on the basics, walking to the mailbox without breathlessness, sleeping through the night without monitors beeping, eating meals that weren't from a hospital tray, small victories that felt enormous. Day 8 arrived with deceptive calm. I was making coffee when my phone started buzzing. Once, twice, then continuously, a vibration that didn't stop. I picked it up and watched the screen light up with incoming calls, one after another, 43 missed calls in 3 hours. All from my family. Not one of them was checking if I was alive. I listened to the voicemails in order. My mother's voice came first, frantic and sharp. "Marcus, we have a problem. Call me immediately." Not "we heard what happened." Not "are you okay?" Just, "we have a problem." My father's message was next, anger thinly veiled as urgency. "This is urgent. Call back now. Don't ignore this." The command in his tone made my jaw tighten. Vanessa's voicemail was performative, breathy with manufactured concern. "Hey, so Mom's freaking out. Can you just call her?" As if this was an inconvenience for everyone. Tyler's was the most insulting. "Yo, need you to do that thing you do. Hit me back. That thing I do." Like fixing their problems was a party trick I performed on demand. Then came the group text. All caps. "Marcus, answer your phone." No question mark. No please. Just a command from people who'd spent the last week pretending I didn't exist. The final message came from my mother, and it clarified everything. The dealership repossessed the car. "I need you to come co-sign today. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." The car I'd co-signed for 2 years ago. The SUV she drove while I took the bus to save money. It was gone, and she needed me to sign for another one. Today. As if my schedule was open. As if I hadn't just survived cardiac arrest. As if the only thing that mattered was her immediate need and my immediate compliance. I read that message 3 times, sitting on my kitchen floor with my back against the cabinet. And then I started laughing. Not because it was funny. It wasn't funny. It was the kind of laughter that comes when absurdity becomes so crystallized, you can either laugh or scream, and laughing takes less energy. They hadn't called to see if I was breathing. They'd called because they needed something I could provide. My credit score, my signature, my willingness to sacrifice myself one more time. The laughter stopped as quickly as it started, replaced by something clearer and colder. They don't love me. They need me. There's a difference. I'd spent 6 years confusing the two, believing that being needed was close enough to being loved, that if I just gave enough, sacrificed enough, bled myself dry enough, eventually they'd see me as more than a resource. But they never would, because to them, I wasn't a son or a brother. I was a solution to their problems, and when I stopped solving, I stopped mattering. I stood up, legs steadier than they'd been in weeks, and walked to my desk. I opened my laptop. The screen glowed in the dim apartment, cursor blinking, waiting. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet, but I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I was done being their ATM, and I was done pretending that need was the same thing as love. I opened a blank spreadsheet and started pulling records. Bank statements going back 6 years, Venmo transaction history, PayPal receipts, credit card statements, every digital footprint of money leaving my account and landing in theirs. At first, I thought I'd just look at the big transactions, the obvious loans. But once I started, I couldn't stop. Every $500 transfer, every utility payment I'd covered, every birthday gift I'd sent while receiving nothing in return. The numbers populated row after row, and with each entry, the picture became clearer and uglier. Categories emerged naturally. Loans that were never repaid totaled $34,500. Co-signed debts that had become my responsibility when they defaulted added $28,200. Emergency transfers for rent, car repairs, medical bills that were always described as one-time crises came to $18,100. Then there were the gifts. Holiday presents, birthday money, graduation funds for nieces and nephews I barely saw. $6,542 spent on people who never once sent me a card. The total sat at the bottom of the column like an accusation. $87,342 over 6 years. I created a graph showing frequency and amounts over time. The line climbed steadily upward, requests growing larger and more frequent as the years passed. They'd learned I would say yes, so they kept asking for more. I pulled up my income history, $95,000 a year, and I'd been living on less than 40% of it. The rest went to them. My retirement account showed a balance of 0. I'd liquidated it 18 months ago to fund my father's business restart, the one that never restarted. My credit score had dropped 90 points because of co-signed debts they'd let go delinquent without telling me. I sat there staring at the numbers, at the forensic evidence of my own erasure, when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. The voice on the other end was familiar in a distant way, like a song you haven't heard in years, but still remember. Marcus, it's your Uncle Ray. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. You're done being their bank, aren't you? I didn't know what to say. Ray was my grandmother's brother, a retired CPA who'd been cut off from the family 8 years ago after calling out my mother's financial manipulation at a holiday dinner. I barely remembered him, except for the stories my mother told, painting him as bitter and negative, someone who couldn't understand what family meant. But his voice didn't sound bitter. It sounded knowing. How did you know? I asked. I saw Vanessa's Instagram post, he said. "The cabin photo. You weren't in it. So I did some digging. Called the hospital where you work. Found out you'd had a cardiac event. Put the pieces together. They didn't visit, did they?" "No." The word came out smaller than I intended. "And now they're calling because they need money." "How do you know that?" "Because it's what they do, Marcus. It's what they've always done. I watched them do it to your grandmother before she died. I tried to warn people. That's why they cut me out. Not because I was negative. Because I was right. That's when I broke. Not dramatically. Just quietly. Tears I didn't know I'd been holding back spilled over, and I couldn't speak. I couldn't explain. I just sat there on my kitchen floor with my laptop open to a spreadsheet that proved I'd been funding my own erasure. And I cried while a man I barely knew stayed on the line and let me. When I could finally talk, Ray said something I'll never forget. "You can't set yourself on fire to keep them warm, Marcus, especially when they're complaining you're not burning bright enough." "I need help," I said. "I don't know how to stop this without destroying everything." "You're not destroying anything," Ray said. "They already did that. You're just documenting it. And I can help you with that. I've been a CPA for 40 years. I know how to audit a relationship. Send me everything you have." Over the next 2 hours, I forwarded documents to Ray. Bank statements, contracts, text message screenshots, voicemails. He worked through them methodically, asking questions that made me realize how much I'd normalized. Why did you co-sign if you weren't using the vehicle? Did they ever provide written terms for repayment? Did you authorize these withdrawals? With each question, the fog lifted a little more. Then Ray found something I'd missed. Your mother opened utility accounts in your name. Did you know that? What? Electric and gas. In your name. At an address you don't live at. They're in collections now. That's affecting your credit too. The audit had revealed more than financial exploitation. It had revealed identity theft, fraud, a systematic pattern of using my resources without my knowledge or consent. And for the first time since waking up in that hospital, I felt something other than numbness or sadness. I felt clarity. Ray wasn't just helping me document what happened. He was helping me see that what happened had a name, had legal boundaries, had consequences, and most importantly, had an ending I could choose. Ray walked me through it step by step, not with cruelty, but with the methodical precision of someone who'd dismantled financial abuse before. We started on a Tuesday morning, and the first action was simple. Change your bank passwords, all of them. I did it while still on the phone with him, watching old passwords disappear and new ones take their place. Within 2 hours, my mother texted, "My account is locked? What's going on?" 3 question marks. Like the problem was technical rather than intentional. I didn't respond. Ray had been clear about that. Silence isn't cruel when you've spent years speaking and no one listened. Silence is just the sound of someone finally stopping. The checklist Ray created was comprehensive. Remove myself as an authorized user on my mother's credit cards. Done. Notify the co-signed car loan company that I had never used the vehicle and wanted documentation of that fact for my records. Done. Close the joint savings account my father had insisted we open years ago, legally withdrawing my portion, which turned out to be the only money in it. Done. Block them on Venmo, PayPal, and Zelle, so no requests could even reach me. Done. Change the passwords on Netflix, Spotify, Amazon Prime, every shared subscription I'd been funding. Done. Contact my landlord to ensure my family could not be granted building access under any circumstances. Done. Each action felt like unlocking a door I'd been standing behind for years. Not dramatic, not vengeful, just necessary. By hour 4, my father had called 11 times. I watched the phone light up on my desk, his name flashing over and over, each call going to voicemail. I didn't listen to them. Ray had advised against it. You already know what he's going to say. He's going to try to make you feel guilty for protecting yourself. Don't give him the opportunity. Hour 6 brought Vanessa's Instagram story. A black screen with white text. When people show you who they really are, believe them. Broken heart emoji. No context, but the subtext was clear. I was the villain in her narrative now. The brother who'd abandoned the family. She didn't mention that I'd been in cardiac arrest 2 weeks ago. She didn't mention the cabin trip during my hospitalization. Just vague accusations designed to garner sympathy from strangers who didn't know the full story. Hour 8 was Tyler's text barrage. Seriously? After everything we've done for you? Followed by, you're really going to throw away your family over money? Then, this is so messed up, man. I thought you were better than this. I read them once, then muted the conversation. Everything they'd done for me. I tried to remember what that was. I couldn't think of a single example. By hour 10, my mother was at my apartment building. I saw her through the doorbell camera, pressing the buzzer repeatedly, pacing in small circles, talking to herself. My heart rate spiked. Old instincts kicked in, the urge to open the door, to fix whatever was wrong, to make her calm again. But I stayed inside. I watched her through the screen, and I didn't move. She left a voicemail. I know you're in there. This is childish. We need to talk like adults. The irony wasn't lost on me. Adults don't commit identity theft. Adults don't abandon their son in the ICU. But I didn't say that. I didn't say anything. Ray texted me around midnight. Stay strong. This is the extinction burst. They'll escalate before they stop. It's a psychology term. When a behavior that's always been rewarded suddenly stops getting rewarded, the person doubles down before they give up. They'll try everything to get you back in line. Don't let them. The next morning brought an email from my father. Subject line, legal action. The body of the email accused me of stealing from my mother, of abandoning my family in their time of need, of violating some unspoken contract I'd apparently agreed to by being born into this family. He threatened lawyers, lawsuits, public exposure. I forwarded it to Ray without comment. Ray's response came within an hour. A formal legal letter sent on my behalf, documenting every transfer, every co-signed loan, every request I'd fulfilled. The letter made clear that no loans had contracts, no theft had occurred, and that any further contact would be considered harassment. It ended with a single sentence. Cease all communication immediately. Later that day, Tyler sent me a screenshot. It was from the family group chat, the one I'd been removed from. They were strategizing. He'll come around. He always does. My mother's message was next. Just give him time to cool off. Then we'll talk sense into him. Vanessa's contribution was the most telling. I'll post something. Public pressure works. They weren't worried about losing me. They were workshopping how to manipulate me back into compliance. I sat on my couch reading that screenshot, and something happened that I hadn't expected. My chest tightened. My breathing shortened. A panic attack, familiar now after weeks of medical trauma. But this time, I didn't reach for my phone to call them. I didn't spiral into guilt. I just breathed. In for 4 counts, hold for 4, out for 4. Ray had taught me that too. The panic passed. The urge to fix things passed. And what remained was just quiet. That night, I fell asleep at 10 p.m. No phone beside my bed, no notifications lighting up the dark, no waiting for the next crisis, the next demand, the next emergency that would somehow become my responsibility. I slept through the night for the first time in years, and when I woke up, the absence of chaos felt less like loss and more like peace. 4 days into my silence, Vanessa posted the video. I didn't see it immediately. Kenji did. He called me at 7 in the morning, voice tight with something between anger and disbelief. "You need to see what your sister just did." The video opened with Vanessa sitting on a bathroom floor, ring light positioned at the perfect angle to catch the tears streaming down her face. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "I don't usually talk about personal stuff, but I need prayers right now. My brother is going through a mental health crisis, and he's pushing away everyone who loves him." She paused, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "We just want our brother back." The way she said it, you'd think I'd disappeared into the wilderness instead of simply stopping bank transfers. She went on to describe me as paranoid, unstable, someone who'd turned against his own family for reasons no one could understand. The comments flooded in immediately. "Praying for your family. Mental illness is so hard. Stay strong." Within 36 hours, the video had 2.3 million views. Influencer drama accounts picked it up, resharing it with captions like "Family torn apart by mental health struggle" and "Sister pleads for brother to get help." My phone became a flood of messages from strangers who'd never met me, but were certain they knew my story. "Please get help. Your family loves you. Mental illness is no joke. You're tearing your family apart." The cruelty of it was almost impressive. Vanessa had weaponized concern, turned my boundary setting into a spectacle, and convinced millions of people that I was the problem. The consequences bled into my real life faster than I expected. HR called. "Someone reached out to us with concerns about your well-being. We wanted to check in." My landlord knocked on my door. "Your mother called asking for a wellness check." She seemed very worried. Even Kenji, who knew the truth, looked shaken when he asked, "Dude, what's happening online? You okay?" I showed Kenji everything: the hospital timeline, the Instagram posts from the cabin, the spreadsheet, the identity theft. He sat in silence, scrolling through evidence, his jaw tightening with every new revelation. When he finished, he just looked at me and said, "They're trying to destroy you because you stopped letting them use you." Ray's advice was simpler. Don't defend yourself publicly. Let the truth surface on its own. It will. I didn't believe him at first. How could the truth compete with Vanessa's platform, her polished tears, her 2 million views? But Ray understood something I didn't yet. The internet loves a villain, but it loves exposing a fraud even more. The turning point came from a Reddit user with the handle Digital Detective. They posted a thread titled, "Influencer Claims." Brother is mentally ill, but look at her posts during his medical emergency. What followed was a forensic timeline that I hadn't compiled myself but could have. Screenshots of Vanessa's family day without the drama post, dated 3 days after my cardiac arrest. Her sponsored content for a wellness brand, posted the same day I was on a ventilator. Discrepancies in her worried family narrative compared to her previous posts, where she'd complained about toxic siblings who expected too much. Every piece of evidence was time-stamped, cross-referenced, undeniable. The thread went viral in a different way than Vanessa's video had. It spread across Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, each platform adding its own layer of outrage. Comments on Vanessa's original video shifted overnight. "You weren't worried when he was in the hospital. So you were on vacation while he was dying. This is disgusting. Brand partnerships began dropping her. A skincare company released a statement. We don't align with creators who exploit family trauma for engagement. Her follower count plummeted, losing 60,000 in 48 hours. Vanessa Miller receipts started trending. The internet had turned, and it turned with the speed and severity of a crowd that realized it had been lied to. Tyler leaked the family group chat to me, maybe out of spite, maybe out of some misguided attempt to pull me back in. The messages were exactly what I expected. My mother's text read, "This is your fault, Vanessa. My father's was predictable. Marcus needs to fix this now." And Vanessa's response carried the same performative desperation as her video. I was trying to help. None of them were concerned about me. They were concerned about their image, their finances, their control slipping away in real time. I didn't respond to any of them. I didn't post a rebuttal or a clarification. I didn't feed the spectacle that Vanessa had created. The only public statement I made was a single-line update on LinkedIn, taking time to focus on health and boundaries. Thanks to those who checked in genuinely. 12 words. No drama, no explanation. Just a boundary, clearly stated, calmly held. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of something I hadn't experienced before. Peace that didn't require anyone's permission. Vindication that came not from defending myself, but from letting the truth speak in its own time. Ray had been right. The internet had done what I couldn't do alone. It had held up a mirror to my family's behavior and shown the world exactly who they were. And I hadn't lifted a finger. Kenji asked me later if I felt satisfied watching Vanessa's world collapse. I told him the truth. I didn't feel satisfied. I didn't feel vindicated or victorious. I just felt tired. Tired of being the villain in their story when all I'd done was stop playing the role they'd written for me. Tired of defending my right to exist outside their needs. The internet's justice wasn't mine to claim. It was just a byproduct of people finally seeing what I'd been living with for years. And honestly, I didn't need the crowd's approval anymore. I just needed my own. 3 weeks after I stopped responding, someone knocked on my office door with an envelope. I was being served with a lawsuit. My father was suing me for unjust enrichment and theft of family assets. The claim alleged that I had promised to support them indefinitely, that the money I'd given was actually loans they'd made to me, and that I now owed them $50,000 in damages. It was a complete inversion of reality, every transaction rewritten as if I'd been the one taking instead of giving. I called Ray. I expected to feel panic, but what came out was almost laughter. I knew they'd try something. Ray's response was immediate and calm. "This is a gift, Marcus. Discovery works both ways. They just opened the door for us to subpoena everything." He connected me with Gloria Chen, a family law attorney who specialized in financial abuse cases. She listened to my story for 20 minutes without interrupting, reviewed the documents I'd compiled, and said something I'll never forget. "I've seen this pattern before. They're not suing because they think they'll win. They're suing to scare you back into compliance. We're not going to let that happen." While we prepared a response to the lawsuit, my mother filed something even more disturbing, an emergency petition for guardianship. She claimed I was unable to care for myself, citing my cardiac event as evidence of incapacity and Vanessa's viral video as proof of mental instability. She wanted legal control over my finances, my medical decisions, my entire life. The petition painted me as someone who'd lost touch with reality, who needed family intervention before I hurt myself further. The guardianship hearing happened fast. I showed up in a suit, carrying a folder of documentation. My cardiologist had written a letter confirming I was physically recovered and mentally sound. My HR department submitted a statement noting my excellent work performance and recent promotion during what my mother was calling my crisis period. I sat in that courtroom and watched the judge read through the evidence with an expression that shifted from neutral to irritated. The hearing lasted 15 minutes. The judge dismissed the petition with prejudice, meaning it couldn't be refiled. His final comment was directed at my mother's attorney. This appears to be financial manipulation, not concern. I suggest your client reconsider her approach. My mother sat in the back of the courtroom, face pale, realizing she'd just lost the legal avenue she thought would give her back control. But the lawsuit discovery was where everything unraveled for them. Gloria subpoenaed my family's financial records, and what emerged was worse than I'd imagined. Utility accounts had been opened in my name without my knowledge or consent, starting in 2019 and running through the present. A credit card using my social security number had been opened in 2021, maxed out, and defaulted. There was even a small business loan for $15,000 in my name, taken out for Tyler's LLC that never produced anything except debt. My mother was listed as an authorized user on multiple accounts, but the signatures on the applications weren't mine. They were forgeries. Gloria pulled my full credit report. The identity theft totaled $43,000 in fraudulent debt that I didn't know existed. She looked at me across her desk and said what I'd been afraid to name myself. This is criminal identity theft, multiple felonies. You could file charges. Ray's advice was strategic. You can file charges, or you can use this as leverage to make them go away forever. What do you want, Marcus? Justice or peace? I wanted peace, but I also wanted protection, so I did both. I filed police reports and credit fraud complaints, creating an official record of what they'd done. Gloria sent the evidence to my family's attorney, who received it on a Friday and withdrew from the case by Monday. The message was clear. He wasn't going to defend the indefensible. My father left a voicemail that night. You're destroying this family. Over money? His voice cracked with something that might have been genuine emotion, but the irony was too thick to feel sympathy. They'd built their lives on money they'd stolen from me, and now I was the one destroying the family by refusing to be stolen from anymore. Gloria sent them an ultimatum through their now former attorney. Drop all legal actions, sign a no-contact agreement, or face criminal prosecution for identity theft and fraud. They signed within 48 hours. The agreement was comprehensive. No contact for life. Acknowledgement that the fraudulent debts would be removed from my credit report. No public statements about me on any platform. No third-party contact through friends, employers, or extended family. It was more than a boundary. It was a legal fortress, signed and notarized, enforceable in court. The silence that followed wasn't like the silence before. This wasn't me choosing not to respond. This was a legally binding separation, a document that said what I'd been unable to say for years. You don't get to hurt me anymore. You don't get access. You don't get another chance. Ray called the day the agreement was finalized. How do you feel? He asked. I thought about it. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel angry. I felt something quieter and more solid, protected. For the first time in my adult life, I didn't have to guard myself against the people who were supposed to love me. The law was doing that now, and that protection, cold and impersonal as it was, felt more reliable than any promise my family had ever made. 6 months passed like a season change, gradual but undeniable. I was in therapy every week, working through family trauma with EMDR, a process that felt like rewiring old circuits in my brain. Cardiac rehab was complete, and my cardiologist gave me a clean bill of health. At work, I'd been promoted to senior director, a position I'd been too exhausted to pursue when I was funding everyone else's lives. I moved into a one-bedroom apartment, my own space with furniture I chose, and walls I painted myself. My emergency fund hit $10,000, a number that used to feel impossible. My credit score climbed 60 points as fraudulent accounts were removed and disputed, and I'd started dating Emma, someone I met at a cardiac recovery support group, who understood what it meant to rebuild yourself from the ground up. I'd also started a blog, anonymous, personal, focused on financial boundaries and the cost of toxic family dynamics. I called it The Cost of Family. Within 3 months, it had 15,000 followers. People shared their own stories in the comments, messages arriving daily from readers who said things like, "You saved me from repeating your path." The blog became something I hadn't expected. Not just a place to process my own experience, but a space where others could recognize patterns they'd been too close to see. I wasn't thinking about my family when I ran into Tyler. It was Sunday afternoon, and I was in the produce section of a grocery store, debating between 2 types of apples. I heard my name before I saw him. "Marcus. Hey, can we talk?" Tyler looked worse than I remembered. Tired, older, the kind of worn that comes from stress rather than time. My heart rate elevated immediately, an old instinct recognizing threat even when my mind knew I was safe. But it wasn't panic, just recognition. Just the body remembering what the brain had moved past. "I miss you, man," he said. "Family isn't supposed to end like this. Family isn't supposed to commit identity theft either." He flinched. That was Dad and Mom, not me. "You knew. You sent me the group chat screenshots, remember?" He shifted his weight, looking down at his shoes. "I thought you'd forgive us eventually." "I don't know. I thought that's what family does. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation." He nodded slowly, processing that distinction. Vanessa's struggling, lost all her brand deals. Mom and Dad might lose the house. His eyes searched mine, looking for the crack where guilt used to live. "I'm not their solution anymore." "So that's it? You're just done?" "Yeah, I'm done. I hope things get better for you, Tyler. I really do, but not at my expense." I turned my cart and continued shopping. No dramatic exit, no speech, just movement forward, aisle to aisle. The conversation already receding behind me. Tyler called after me. "You're making a mistake." I didn't look back. In the parking lot, I sat in my car with my hands on the steering wheel, noticing they were shaking slightly. Not from fear. From adrenaline, maybe. From the sheer strangeness of encountering someone who used to define my life, and feeling nothing but distance. I texted Emma, ran into my brother, proud of how I handled it. Her response came quickly. "Proud of you too. See you tonight?" I drove home with the windows down, music playing, feeling lighter than I had in years. That night over dinner, I told Emma the full story of the grocery store encounter. She listened without trying to fix anything, without offering advice I didn't need, just present and attentive in the way that makes you realize what healthy relationships actually look like. "You're not talking about them like they have power over you anymore," she observed. I thought about that. She was right. Months ago, even the thought of seeing Tyler would have sent me spiraling. Now, it was just an event that happened and ended. "I think that's what healing actually looks like," I said. Not forgetting, not forgiving, just not being controlled by it anymore. The family that used to define my existence had become background noise, people I used to know. A chapter that was finished, not because I burned the book, but because I simply turned the page and kept reading. And what I found on the next pages was something I'd never had before. A life that was mine. Relationships built on reciprocity instead of obligation. Peace that didn't require anyone's permission. The absence of chaos felt less like loss and more like the space where I could finally breathe without someone else's needs pressing on my lungs. It's been a year since the cardiac arrest. December again, but this time I'm sitting in an apartment I actually chose, drinking coffee I can afford, planning a wedding to someone who loves me, without needing anything from me, except presence. Emma and I got engaged on the anniversary of the day we met at Cardiac Recovery Group. The blog has 45,000 followers now, and I've been fielding book deal offers from publishers who think other people need to hear this story. I'm still in therapy, still processing, but the difference is I'm no longer consumed by it. Kenji will be my best man, and Uncle Ray, who passed away 2 months ago at 76, left me a letter I read at his funeral that I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. "You were always worth saving," he wrote. "I'm glad you finally believed it. The family you choose matters more than the family you're born into. I'm proud of you, not for cutting them off, but for choosing yourself." Ray's death hit me harder than I expected, but it also felt like completion. Like the last person who truly saw me had passed the torch, trusting I could carry it forward on my own. And I have. The wedding will be small, 20 people. No one from my blood family, but Emma's family has welcomed me with the kind of warmth I used to think was reserved for people who earned it. Kenji will give a toast about the family we choose. And I'll stand there feeling complete, not missing anything. The blog receives 50 messages a day from people setting boundaries for the first time. One person wrote, "Your story saved my life." Literally. I was about to co-sign another loan. Another said, "I thought I was alone." Thank you for showing me I'm not. Those messages remind me that the cardiac arrest, as brutal as it was, gave me something I couldn't have found any other way. Not the event itself, but the clarity it forced. My body said no, when I couldn't. Here's what I've learned. You can't love someone into treating you better. Financial abuse is still abuse, even when it's wrapped in family obligation. Silence isn't cruel when speech has never been heard. Healing isn't linear, but it is possible. And you're allowed to outgrow people, even if they share your blood. If you're watching this and you're the family ATM, if you've been called selfish for having boundaries, if you're exhausted from being everyone's solution, this is your permission slip. You don't owe anyone access to you. Setting boundaries isn't punishment, it's self-preservation. Choosing yourself isn't selfish when others have been choosing themselves at your expense for years. Some relationships are meant to end. That doesn't make you a failure. It makes you human. I'm sitting at my desk right now, writing this with a wedding photo in frame beside me, coffee steaming, morning light coming through the window. And I feel something I didn't think was possible a year ago. Peace. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of something stronger. The knowledge that I'm worth more than what I can provide. That love isn't supposed to cost everything. That family, real family, doesn't require you to bleed yourself dry to prove you belong. If you're reading this and wondering if you should walk away, this is your permission. You don't need theirs. You never did. Share your story in the comments if you're ready. You're not alone. And to anyone who's already walked away, who's already set the boundaries, who's already chosen themselves over the people who only chose what you could give them. I see you, and I'm proud of you.